Hello and welcome to my review of the new album by Miley Cyrus called Younger Now, which just came out this past Friday. I have so much to say about this new album. I'm very, very excited about Miley's transformation. Of course, it has been, talked about quite a lot. She's gone complete 180 from where she was 4 years ago with her album Bangers, which was a complete departure from the Hannah Montana Disney childhood wholesome image that she was so much a part of in her childhood and teenage life, that she was rebelling against quite openly, to embrace hip hop culture, to embrace party culture, to embrace sexuality. Some of this was executed okay, and a lot of it was not executed very well, in my opinion. I don't know if I'm ever going to do a formal review of the Bangers album because it's difficult for me to find a lot of positive things to say about a lot of the songs on the record. Though I will be honest, it's not horrible. It's just not my taste, which is what makes it so difficult. I mean, I still try to get myself to like it because I did see Miley through all of it, and I did sort of relate to it to some extent. There were some songs that, even though they were so outrageous, I actually still found really catchy and fun, and kind of convinced myself that because it was Miley, I was going to like this song and I was going to get into it. But, a lot of them haven't aged very well. And so it very much feels like a project that was chasing after trends and was chasing after being off of capitalizing on, current pop culture, what she did at the VMAs, the twerking, the weed use. It was all kind of capitalizing on youth culture at the time. It was capitalizing on working with the top producers at the time, working with, the best songwriters. It was not an album that, as Miley has later said in interviews, although she does not believe that Bangers was not true to herself, just like Younger Now is not true to herself. If, she's transforming so much from album to album to album, it does not mean that all of those albums are conflated against each other. They're all just parts of herself and her journey and her expression and understanding who she is and how we all grow and transform. And artists are meant to transform and experiment. So I don't fault her for whatsoever. I knew that it wasn't going to be too long before Miley was going to Miley was going to kind of feel a little bit more like she wanted to come back to sort of where her roots were, which her roots are Nashville. That's where she's grown up. That's where she's, her father is Billy Ray Cyrus. Her godmother is Dolly Parton. She's got a lot of country influences on some of her earlier music. Her Can't Be Tamed album, was the cover of Every Rose Has Its Thorn. She has always been influenced by country music. Even Bangers had some country stuff going on. I mean, she tried to get like sort of this rowdy, rodeo stomping sound for some songs like 4x4, or, even with Do My Thing, she tries to remind you it's do my thing, like I'm a Southern belle. So she never strays too far from that image. I would say on her Dead Pets album, that was when she probably tried to shed that country image completely into this very sort of psychedelic hippie girl who is vegan and is trying to figure out all these things while doing a lot of pot. And don't get me wrong, the Dead Pets album has some amazing songs. As a whole, there are a lot of songs that I have to be completely honest, I've never even fully listened to. Because unfortunately, just listening to the snippets, I appreciate experimental, psychedelic, punk rock, alternative stuff, but it's not necessarily my cup of tea. There are songs on there I really love, like Lighter and Twinkle Song. Oh my God, first time I heard Twinkle Song, it just broke me to tears. It's so powerful. And then there are songs that I don't know what to think. They're very experimental. They're very difficult to access, and I appreciate it for that. The experimentation was there, but it's not what I'm asking for from Miley, and I don't necessarily feel as though that was a route I felt she was going to I didn't see that as what Miley was going to do for the rest of her career. That was just a moment, just like Bangers was a moment. Just like Younger Now is, in a way, a moment. Younger Now is an amalgamation of her love for predominantly, I would say, 40s and 50s country, which is a lot more folk tinged than country became later on, you know, thanks to artists like Tim McGraw. For take it or leave it, but you know, country is a lot less folk and Americana influenced nowadays than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. But she also combines that sort of quiet Nashville folk sound with a very grand 60s and 70s pop sound. She's inspired a lot by Elvis for this record, as can be seen in the music video for Younger Now, which is pretty much a love letter to Elvis's music videos and imagery. She has this sort of revolutionary pop, Beatles almost-esque sound to a lot of these songs that still focus on country instrumental and country production. So she marries those two actually, I think, quite well, and they kind of blend together to create this nice sort of edgy sort of new sound for her that's mellow, but it also has an energy to it most of the time, though it doesn't always work. And the one critique I will kind of say about this album is that a lot of the songs do start to sound very similar, especially as we get towards the end of this record, because the sound and the production gets very similar. You know, there's a lot of the same instruments. We've got a lot of banjos, we've got a lot of guitars, we've got a lot of a similar drum sort of situation going on. It works at the beginning when you're like, oh, this is cool, this is country. This is, I don't want to say it's purely country Miley, because when you think of country music, you know, if you're thinking, this isn't like Carrie Underwood country. This isn't like pop country. This is, like I said, this is more Dolly Parton. This is more Loretta Lynn. This is more, you know, Porter Wagoner. You know, this has more of those sort of influences than I would say it has of, you know, like more modern day country starlets. Let's just put it that way. Which I appreciate, because I actually really appreciate that sort of older, folkier sound that even artists like Joni Mitchell tried to experiment with her discography. So, obviously, you know, everything about this record screams reinvention. It's not just all about love. You know, this album is at one, you know, in an easy listen can be construed as an album full of love songs, but to be perfectly honest, there's only a few songs on there that are really directed towards, you know, Miley's current relationship, which we all know with Liam Hemsworth, who she's now re-engaged with after she called it off with bangers, which I can't help but kind of, you know, back in that time, I couldn't help but agree with Liam for breaking up with her. I didn't really like what Miley was doing back then. I'm sorry, it's just how it is. And I am a Miley Cyrus fan. But I was, at the time, like, yeah, okay, I kind of see why Liam decided to break off this engagement, because what is she doing? But now they're back together, which I never saw happening. I mean, it does seem like a complete, you know, that in some aspects really makes you think that Miley's like, hold on, what was I doing? Like, I've always been meant to be with Liam. Like, I was going off track, you know, like I was off the rails, even though she will never want to admit that fully. And I can totally understand that, because you want to, if you don't want to call everything you do a mistake, you know, it was meant to happen. It was just learning experiences. You know, she was growing to be a better person. And she does talk about how, you know, growing up, she worked a 9-to-5 job working on the set of Hannah Montana, or working in the industry. She was writing out, making albums, doing all of these things, movies. And she never got a chance to party. She never got a chance to live a typical teenage life. So suddenly she was 19 years old, freed from all these contracts, and that's when she went crazy. And so she had that year and a half to just write bangers to do that. But now she's in a very different part of her life where she is expressing a need to come back to understanding herself. One of the things I really have to emphasize is this is sober Miley. Miley has, as I watched an interview recently, she's been 6 months sober. I don't even think she's drinking at this point. She has completely tried to clear her head. And this album was written a lot of this time while she was in this 6 month sober period. And so she is really trying to focus in on her ability to focus to some extent. Because yeah, when you're on drugs, you are very spaced out. You're all over the place, and you can get some really great creative stuff, heads dead pets. But at the same time, it's hard for you to talk about it. It's hard for you to get a message across. She's been coming very focused now with her Happy Hippie Foundation, with her campaigning for Hillary Clinton, with all of the issues or animal rights that she's really trying to focus on. That's becoming so much more clear now. And I think that Miley's life path is becoming clearer to her now that she's sober. Never say never. She may fall back on her, her habits, but I'm really happy to see that she's really trying really hard at the age of almost 25. She's still 24 to really make this life adjustment. And that is very reflective on this album. I love that I can play this album for my parents because I loved Miley Cyrus as a teenager and I would play her Can't Be Tamed album to my parents all the time. But bangers, definitely not. Besides Wrecking Ball, you couldn't really play that album much and there was one other song on there called Maybe You're Right that I really loved. But anyway, I'll save that for if I ever do a bangers review. But let's get into this album, Younger Now. The title track, I adore the message of this song. The first few lyrics are probably the lyrics that have spoke to me the most throughout all of 2017 so far. Feels like I have just woke up. Like all this time I've been living in a dream. Even though it's not who I am, I'm not ashamed of who I used to be. No one stays the same. What goes up must come down. Change is a thing you can count on. These lyrics kind of form the bulk of the arch of this song, and they just perfectly illustrate the theme of this record with her feeling a little bit more connected to her roots by talking about how she feels younger now, but also understanding her transformation at where she is in her career. She's like telling people, look, we all go through changes in life. We all might do things that contradict our past selves, but you know what? That was still our self at that time. And I'm not ashamed of it, but I'm living change. I'm an embodiment of what change is, and that is what life is. You can't shut yourself down to change because it is the one thing that will not let you down and that it will occur whether you like it or not. And if you fight change, it's going to be painful. But if you learn to embrace and open up to it, life is going to be suddenly so much more freeing. I can really relate to this because I don't want to be ashamed of who I was. I don't want to be ashamed about a single thing I've done. I want to accept that it was a part of who I am, and I want to move forward being proud of that, but understanding that I could be completely different tomorrow. Change can happen at any moment, internally and externally, as we do know. So it's a beautiful song, a powerful, again, it has a 60s, 70s sound, but it also has those pounding guitars. It's got such a really cool theme, of course, of the Elvis stuff. I love the choreography in the music video. I've talked about the song. I'll link a review into it, the link to the review in the description box when it came out. It's a really beautiful song. It opens up the record beautifully. The lead single, Malibu, oh my God, this was the song that introduced us to this new sound of Miley, and I think it was the perfect lead single for this album. It is so heartfelt and sweet. This song is just, it makes me feel good. It speaks of romance and the butterflies in your stomach around being with your partner. It makes me like really excited to well, not just live with a significant other in some amazing place you never thought you would live and travel to all these amazing places, but it makes you so happy to sort of settle. This song has kind of a sense of settling down. I'm not saying Miley wants to settle in Malibu. She's actually recently kind of expressed a lot of wanting to go back to Nashville, which she thought was kind of ironic. That's why she needed to get Malibu out at the time she did, because she was still living in Malibu. She'll always be a part of her, will always live there, but she's now focusing a little bit less from like West Coast Cali to like, her Tennessee roots. And this song, yeah, it doesn't necessarily feel so Tennessee. It does feel very California, but there's a bit of the blend of both that I still really appreciate. It's like the Nashville girl and the Malibu girl kind of met halfway and decided to make a slightly country-leaning song, but I would say it's definitely more along the lines of like pop alternative, like almost rock sound. It is a very mellow song. Some people criticize that her voice, the tone of it, like all the good backing vocals where she really reaches those high notes are like hushed in the background. I do wish they came out a little bit more into the forefront, but I do like the sort of mellow sound because it's relaxed, it's comfortable, it's not forced and like over the top and theatrical like Bangers was, which was very like that. And, maybe some people think it's like sounds a little stoned or something. You have to remember, I mean, this song was written when she was not sober, but it still doesn't necessarily speak to that. It doesn't have the same sort of monotonous tone that she had in Dead Pets, where you could consider that was coming from a very sort of stoned sort of place. This doesn't feel like that. It just feels grounded. It feels grounded, but at the same time oozing life. And it does make you want to be on the beach. And I love that guitar riff because, like I said, it feels so California in such a good way. And so for me, this song will always hold a special place in my heart. It's the song of the summer of 2017 for me. And it just fits perfectly for that aesthetic. The next song, Rainbow Land, I have to be honest, when I saw she had a feature with Dolly Parton, I was like, I've been waiting for this my whole frickin' 10 years of loving Miley Cyrus. Yes, Miley and Dolly need to collab. Like, this needs to happen. And I was really excited for this song. I'll be honest, it's not my favorite song on the album after hearing it a couple times. It's a little lackluster. Dolly didn't actually have any moments where, you know, she actually sang on her own and Miley complimented her. It definitely feels a lot like Miley recorded the song and then sent it to Dolly, and Dolly just sort of did some harmonizations with it in the background. We still get a sense that it is speaking more towards the bluegrass sort of Americana country sound that Dolly was about, and it definitely feels like a Dolly Parton song, but it also feels like a Miley Cyrus song. And so I like that those two worlds collided well in that regard. And the one thing I really, really love is the intro and outro, where it's just literally Dolly recorded in a voice memo telling Miley about, or on the phone, about how she's going to do this track for her. She's, you know, hey, I'm on my way to Dollywood, you know, busy as usual. How have you been? It's just so sweet. I had the hugest grin on my face when I heard the beginning of this song. And I just was like, oh, Dolly is speaking to Miley and they're just like coming home. It's like coming home to your grandma who's just like, I love you, sweetie. I know you've done some crazy stuff, but come on home. You know, we're gonna have fun here together. We're gonna make a song. I'm really excited. And at the end, she says, hey, you know, I don't know if it was that good. I don't know. It was just something I tried to send to you. But if you want, I'll write that love song. I know you've got some boy on your mind. I love that. It just reminds me of when Dolly featured on Hannah Montana and she was just giving godmotherly advice, you know, to her young daughter. And there is a bit of a grandmother-daughter sort of relationship there, or even mother-daughter relationship, even though they're not related. But, you know, you can just see the inspiration, the legacy being passed down. I do love the way Miley sort of spaces out the vocals at the end. It fades out. It's so beautiful. It brings the song down. It calms everything down, because the rest of it's a little bit like, let's have a banjo fest, which is fine. It's cute. And it's a cute song. And it's an endearing song. It sings about a utopian idea of why can't we see past color? Why can't we all live in harmony together? But beyond that, it does get a little bit, you know, it's not that memorable, but it's still a good song. Week Without You is another really fun pop-sounding song on this record that sounds a little different from some of the other slower, sort of jammy country songs. Basically sang in a more cheeky, sort of fun way. Like, if I had finally a week without you, I'd have a lot of fun trying to live my life again. And this album kind of flirts around the idea of, like, is she always so happy? Like, Malibu makes it sound like, oh, there's no more struggle anymore. We're in love. But no, we're still young. We're still figuring each other, you know, we're still figuring out our boundaries. We're still figuring out, like, I don't want to spend all my time with you. Like, we all want some time away, and we all kind of sometimes long to just sort of experiment and dip our toes back into the water. But it has the very sing-song, you know, strum your guitar on the porch with your girls, just have a good time. It's not too serious. You're not actually thinking she wants to cheat. She's just sort of like expressing, oh, you know, wouldn't it be fun if, like, I got all my girls and we went on this road trip with, like, we, like, kissed some other dudes. You know, it's not like I'm legit, like, gonna cheat on my boyfriend tomorrow. Like, and I want to do it and I want to hurt him. You know, it's not bitter. It's sort of just fun. And I mean, look, Miley's still a young girl, you know, she's far from settled, even though she is going more in that direction, and I admire her for that. We all kind of still are wanting to, like, live and have a little bit of fun. So that feistiness is still there, and I like that. Then we toned down a lot. Now, I was really excited to see these sort of more ballad-like songs on this record. Miss You So Much and I Would Die For You, I kind of am going to talk about them in the same vein because I think they do kind of flow into one kind of long song. Miss You So Much does drag on a little bit, and it does kind of sound towards the end a little bit droned out. Like I said, it's a little bit monotone. It is beautiful though. They say good things come to those who wait. I'm counting in light years, and I can physically live without you, but I don't want to. Death's never been my fear. You can take my blood, take my bones. My heart is yours. I'll fall in tears. But how do I miss you so much, even though you're right here? When you look up at a rainbow, do you ever wonder? Looks like there really is a happy end. Gosh, I mean, can you imagine? It's like such pain. It's, you know, someone doesn't have to be physically gone for you to feel separated from them. But you realize that whether they're here or gone, you will always miss them and always want to be with them and feel this way about this person so strongly. I don't necessarily interpret this song as so much being about a relationship, but also could be possibly about someone who's passed on, or someone who, you know, you feel not so like a friend you don't feel so close to anymore. It has a very lamenting sort of feel to it, a reflective feel. But what I really appreciate about these two songs is that she really lets her voice shine, especially on the next track, I Would Die For You. This song features some of the strongest stripped-back vocals that we've seen of Miley in quite some time, especially where she sings the line, literally, I would die for you, and there's a timbre to her voice. There's a vibration that sounds so rich, and it actually reminds me a little bit of this singer from Norway named Aurora, when she does, like it has that, you know, like it has that rich sort of innocent, sweet sound to it that is so, I mean, it is so bluegrass and it is so kind of like down-to-earth girl swinging and strumming on a guitar with not much else going on, and it's very acoustic. But, so it has that closeness to it, you know, but it feels so forlorn and it feels so emotional. And of course, I Would Die For You is a love song, of course, singing, you know, like, I'd do anything for you. You're the one I come back to over and over. The song Thinkin' is trying to introduce the sort of catchy chorus going back into the song. And I appreciate that for what it is. It's more pounding. It's got a little bit of a dance. You know, you can sort of move to it, but it's also got some angst, you know. It's like existential, like, I've been thinking way too much. You ain't been calling me enough. You know, why am I still like treating why am I treating myself like crap all the time by being with you still? I need to, you know, I need to figure out what's going on. I need clarity on this issue. And of course, it also definitely speaks to someone who's been alone for a little while and their partner's been away and they're like, why is my partner not calling me that much? Why is my, you know, why do I have all this time alone to think? And is it a good thing, or am I making things out of nothing? The next song, Bad Mood. Now, this song is actually really interesting. At first, I interpreted this song as being about a relationship, but no, I see this song as totally being, and I kind of have confirmation on this, song is for Hillary Clinton. This is about the election. Mainly because, she does mention the glass ceiling's gonna break. She sings that in the song. The glass ceiling's gotta break. Altogether, I want to hear you say, I don't know how much more it can take. You know it's gone on way too long. And you know it's wrong. But I know I'm strong. I don't give up. When it gets tough, I get tough. I've had enough. So, you know, there's just such a battle cry to say, like, I know this is so depressing right now. Like, this is so frustrating. But there's a limit to how much we let this get us down. And then we start to eventually build up from it. You know, we turn this bad mood into energy to fuel us to create change. That's such a important thing to express in the song. We're bitter, we're angry about what's happened. God knows, but ultimately this is going to carry us to victory. That glass ceiling will break. It's hard, you know. We all get into a bad mood about this, and this song has a real angst to it, and also a real pain to it. But it expresses it in a way that says, look, I got to get this out. I sometimes am in a bad mood, but I'm going to be thinking forward. Like, I'm going to be positive throughout all of this. The next song, Love Someone, goes back to sort of this idea of, we've all met someone who is not capable of loving fully yet. Maybe they don't love themselves yet. They need to learn to love someone. They need to learn how to care for someone else other than themselves. So this song is literally an FU to someone who's just not treating the other person fairly and does not even understand what love really is about. That love is a two-way street, that love is a bridge you meet halfway on. It's about compromise. And it has a very 60s sort of swing to it that really feels full of energy. It packs a punch. It's a really fun song. It's, again, more catchy, and she belts out really strong, and her voice comes through very clear on this song. The penultimate song, She's Not Him, is very sort of laid back. It's very stripped back. I'm not a big fan of this song, to be completely 100% honest. It's the one song that I sort of feel like it's not as memorable. I sort of skip over it. But I do think the lyrics are still extremely important. I mean, to be interpreted as being saying she's basically considered being in a relationship with a girl before, and she tried it and she did like her, but she's not him. She's not the boyfriend that she once had. You could construe that to be Liam, could be someone, who knows. But it also is important that she makes this song because, you know, the idea of she's not him, it's like, what? You know, at first you read into it and you're like, why are we comparing these two people together? Is she bisexual? We kind of all kind of know that she is, but she's never sung about it so openly before. And I really appreciate that she's willing to throw the pronouns out there so openly and express that she has considered being in love with a woman before. It's not something she's afraid of expressing in a song. And although it didn't end up working out, you know, that doesn't, you know, mean she didn't feel something at the time. And the song is mournful. It's lamenting that. It's saying, well, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I probably am best off with him, but I also kind of am sad that this isn't working out with you, but, you know, it's all for the best. Then we come to the final song, again, a personal favorite of this album, Inspired. When I first heard this song, especially performed live, this is when I knew Miley was truly going in a direction that I really 100% could get behind. Because this song is not just heartfelt and beautiful and sincere, but it has a message that is so universal and so needed right now about how we need to feel inspired. Again, we need to, instead of feel angry about what's going on in the world, because it is so easy to feel angry. You know, you can feel sad and then you get angry and bitter, but we need to learn how to feel inspired. And she talks about her dad and the wisdom he imparts to her, especially when she was a kid. There's all these sayings he would tell her about life and moving on from struggle, and he taught her how to be inspired from a bad situation, to make something out of nothing, to turn this world into a positive world instead of viewing everything as a negative and letting the world attack you and be a victim to it. And it carries through in this beautiful folky sound that I love. The fiddle that is incorporated, because it adds so much more of a bluegrass ensemble sound, which I wish was kind of present on some more of the album instead of just sort of the same instruments. The introduction of the fiddle really adds another element to the song, and it does feel very Nashville, and it feels so much like just a song you sing in your backyard, your porch, with your, you know, with your small band, with, like, you know, just this beautiful hope for the new generation, for a world that will be better. And Miley expresses this so beautifully, you know, that opening lyric where she sings, I'm writing down my dreams, all I'd like to see, starting with the bees, because they're gonna die. I mean, yeah, this is also an environmentalist message. You know, this world needs our protection. This world needs us to stand up for it. And we need to still dream about a world for our children that is still just as beautiful as the world we see outside of us today. And of course, the idea of change seeming strange at first. You know, I know it sounds so strange, but we hold the keys to change. Again, tying in that theme of change is a good thing. Don't fight it. Don't fight what's going on in your life right now. Learn to live with it. Learn to build and be inspired from it. All of these through lines connect the album so beautifully, not just sonically, but lyrically, to really be an album about reflection on childhood, reflection on change, and hope for the future. And so all these things come together in a beautiful, heartfelt, authentic record that I even think people who are not such a huge country listeners, like me, for example, I'm not a big country music fan, but this album makes me love country. but only when Miley does it, or only when Dolly Parton does it, because I do love Dolly and a few others, because it's so much more, accessible, I think, when it's so when it's so warm and so, obviously trying to go for melody and trying to go for something that will sound good, but also feels so good. When the sound, like the instruments are so lush and so acoustic and down to earth, it feels very grounded and it feels like it has a heart to it. And it's really a breath of fresh air when we have so many artists going for the sort of, I don't want to say more hollow, but the more electronic studio crafted sound that can sound really cool, but also maybe sounds a bit like a robot put it together. This album does not feel at all like that. This is a person pouring her thoughts and feelings pen to paper and expressing them through music in a really beautiful way. I'm really excited to see where Miley goes from here. I think she's at a really beautiful stage in her development. She's the same age as me, and I can only hope that at this stage in my life as well, it's almost turning 25, which is crazy, that I'm starting to feel like I want that clarity and I want to, really understand who I'm moving into and who I'm evolving to become, and also understanding and reconciling my past in this way. So I really appreciate what she's created for this album, Younger Now. I think it's a beautiful title, a beautiful sentiment. I think it's an album that, again, the casual listener is going to really enjoy. And like I said, it has cross-generational appeal, which makes me really happy. There's not a whole lot of explicits on this album. It's a very family-friendly record, which we don't always need from Miley for her to be good, but I'm just saying it feels like it brings people together more than it divides them. And that's what she ultimately wanted to do, especially in this divisive country that we live in right now in this era. So I thank you, Miley, for bearing your soul on this album. I really, really, whatever genre you'll do, I will enjoy and appreciate, because you have an amazing voice and you really have talent and you have an amazing soul and spirit. And I just admire her for all the things she's working towards and this clarity of vision that she has. So let me know what you think in the comments about this album. I definitely want to review some of her other music that she's done in the past that I really loved, like back in high school, because I definitely was a huge fan of Hannah Montana. And I see a little bit of her sort of coming back to that a little bit. But obviously, in Hannah Montana, she didn't hide that she was a country girl with a country singer father. And that's just that sort of girl next door sort of coming through again. That was Miley Stewart. And we see that. And she's not trying really hard to make that apparent again, but it just comes through naturally. And I like that that's not forced. Nothing is really forced about this persona. There's no, brazen, like, I'm gonna make you think I'm one thing. And yes, it is a shame that I feel like she might have maybe used Black culture as a little bit of a stepping stone for capitalist gains, which I must admit is a whole other video, and I don't want to sour the image of this album by talking about things she's done in the past, because I'm not saying I'm totally on board with a lot of decisions that Miley has made with the Bangers era, but I'm not going to get into that. This album, it exists in another plane, and it's still Miley. There are all these through lines, but it's a Miley that I'm proud of, and it's a Miley that I have real hope for the future after listening to, because she really feels like a spokesperson, and she really feels like someone who's trying to bring about change in a positive way through beautiful music. So, hope you enjoyed this review. I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace, love, and light. Bye.